Everybody, summer is over and the Gary Neville Podcast is back.
It should be renamed.
What?
The Gary Neville and Peter Drury Podcast.
No. I'm just here to tee it
Neville
up for
and
you.
Drury.
I'm here to tee it up for you.
Or Neville and Dreary.
Yeah, well, that's nearer the mark.
Or Neville Dreary.
Drury Neville. Anyhow, what it hasn't been is a dreary first weekend of the Premier League, has it? I mean, it's been a bit crazy. There have been some strange results, at least relative to expectation. And there's been a melodramatic game here at St James's Park, which, of course, has been played within a sort of Kevin Keegan flavoured day, Gary.
Yes.
And a 2-2 draw is kind of him all over. And it was a really wonderful football match.
It was good. Yeah, it was good to watch, end to end. I think both teams, quality-wise, in the final third, Liverpool will be really disappointed, I think. But from Newcastle's perspective, I was really downbeat on Newcastle. Just generally, just in the last few weeks, losing obviously their manager, who's been a brilliant manager up here, Eddie Howe, bringing silverware a couple of years ago, getting into the Champions League, signing really good characters, but losing Trippier, losing Guimaraes, losing Tonali, losing Gordon. Obviously, Joe Linton, I think, was sat behind us today, so he wasn't out there as well. And you're thinking, how are they going to cope? You know, you can lose a manager, but then to lose your manager and your engine room of your team, I was thinking that, you know, it could be a really challenging season. Look, it's still maybe, it's very early on. But I think that I'll have to learn to pronounce it. Is it Yaisler?
Correct.
I'm doing pretty well, aren't I?
Yeah.
Yeah, Yaisler. I think if you look at that today for him, he'll be encouraged. I thought he managed the game well. I thought he brought substitutions on at the right time. I thought the players that he started with, Stur and Lewis Miley in midfield, such a young midfield. I think one of them 18, the other 20. Yep. So you're thinking about that against Szoboszlai, against Gravenberch, against Wirtz in there, and you're thinking they're going to get pulled apart. But the job that Visser did, and those two defensively, was fantastic. The back four for Newcastle held together. The front players were a real threat on the counter-attack, Asula, Elanga and Barnes. Yeah, so everything that the new manager could have asked for that he got. And the start to the game was obviously most important. That first 10-15 minutes, you felt like Newcastle needed to score for two reasons. One, for the crowd, to give them a boost and make them sort of realise that actually, you know, we're not going to have a disappointing season, but also for the players to give them that encouragement that they can compete in the game and get that first step on the ladder. Because I think if Liverpool go ahead, it could have easily dipped quite quickly. So yeah, I thought it was a really committed performance today. And I think you mentioned three words in the commentary that Yaisler wants from his players, and that's trust, respect and commitment. Well, I said trust and respect comes from working together over a period of time, or being together over a period of time, but that'll be a good start to that sort of first two. But then commitment, that's the one thing that has to be, it's a non-negotiable in anything that you do in life, let alone playing a football team in front of this crowd. You've got to run around in the black and white shirt, you've got to have passion, a love for the game. I'm going to bring Kevin Keegan's name into it early and we'll discuss him at the end. But Kevin Keegan's biggest. I played under Kevin for England for 2 years. His enthusiasm, and I think I'm enthusiastic about football. And when I get up in the morning, I go for it. But I tell you what, you can times that by 100 when you meet Kevin Keegan. His enthusiasm, his infectiousness, his ability just to make everybody feel positive every single minute of every day. That's what this crowd need. And today, those players have done really well for Newcastle, and they'll feel a lot better leaving. I mean, look, they've had a bit of a killer at the end. We'll come on to that, I'm sure. But they'll feel quite positive about what they've seen today, because I think a lot of them will have been thinking we're going to get a bit of a hiding. I was expecting Liverpool to win this game comfortably, to be fair, before. So, yeah, I think Newcastle United supporters, the coach, the ownership that were probably a little bit nervous about what might happen, and the executive team and sporting directors who are thinking, if this goes wrong, we could be getting put under real pressure with a week to go in the transfer window. That'll just take a little bit of pressure off.
Anthony Elanga, I'm sure we'll talk about Wieser and Hall, who I think you picked out as perhaps your best Newcastle players. But Elanga, since I guess you knew him as a young boy growing up at Manchester United, is one of those, it's always struck me, sort of mood players. You know, if he's up and he's flying, he can be wonderful. To have that moment 5 minutes into a new season, having not scored in the Premier League in the whole of his first Newcastle season, that's going to matter to him, isn't it?
Yeah, and look, on the counter-attack, if it becomes a straight race one-on-one, which I actually don't blame Kirkes for that goal. So Kirkes is obviously marking him and he's the one chasing back, but I actually don't think he does a lot wrong. I actually think the rest of the team, the midfield, empty in midfield, and then Van Dijk and Xhaka not pushing in. And, if your midfield aren't there, then the centre-backs, particularly in the modern game, they push right in. But he gets in a race with Kirkes Elanga, and it's like an Olympic sprinter. It was devastating to watch, and it was like time stood still because you could see it coming from a mile off, couldn't you? That Asula was just going to roll him in, and then you're thinking it's still a big thing to beat Alisson one-on-one. You've seen him there save one at the end from Visser, but I do think he overcovered the near post, the Brazilian goalkeeper, maybe because of the speed of the counter-attack. He's shuffling across. He's not quite sort of got his measure of where he is. And there's just that gap in that far corner. It doesn't go right in off the post or anything. It sort of goes in, I think, a metre into the corner, but he puts it across really nicely. And it's a great moment for him. And look, before the game, the one thing that I thought, looking at sort of the game in terms of sort of where are Newcastle going to potentially do something, was the fact that they have that front four. Asula is a handful. Visser, I didn't think we were going to see that, Visser, but he can be a handful. And, geez, he was. And then you've got Elanga and Barnes, so you think to yourself, actually, that's the strongest part of Newcastle's team out there today. And when you look at Liverpool's fullbacks, Kirkes and Frimpong, they do give you a big chance defensively. I don't think any winger is going to be playing against them and thinking, I think they're going to be fancying the chances. Now, you've got to track them back that way because they do go forward really well. And they're lively, and they've got their strengths. But I think defensively you can get at them and you can overpower them. So it was a great start for Newcastle, and that just gave them that feeling that, we're in this game, and that actually, off the back of the Kevin Keegan tribute and the atmosphere at the start of the game, you thought this was true St James's Park.
Yeah, the other one you picked out, apart from your man of the match, Johan Wieser, who's being interviewed now, was Lewis Hall. Talk to me about his afternoon, because he's played so well, and then he has to swallow that.
Do you know something? I think it was Ryan Giggs once said to me, he scored a goal once against me at the end of training, and I'd literally marked him for like 45 minutes in an attack v defence. And I remember him saying to me, he said, I can run at you 50 times. He said, and you can take it off me 49. He said, but if I score in that 50th, you're done. And it just sums up the life of a fullback. That you can be brilliant for 89 minutes. You can be brilliant for 25 out of 26 one-on-one dribbles that you face. You can mark Engamora out of the game, and you can mark Munoz out of the game. Although I want to talk about Munoz in a bit, because I actually thought he was really bright when he came on. And also for a wide player to keep going at you, because sometimes you can dishearten a wide player by them thinking that, okay, there's no point running at him anymore because he's comfortably marking me. But he kept on going. But I'm not going to do. I don't like doing. When you're Munoz there, and all he has to do is just do what he done all game, which is just get low. Munoz I'm on the wrong side here. Munoz goes, and he just tracks him, manages the run. Maybe he blocks the shot, maybe he blocks the cross, maybe he runs it out for a corner, maybe, those things can happen. But what he decided to do is what I did towards the end of my career as, say, for instance, an older fullback does, or a tired fullback. And obviously Lewis Hall's not an older fullback, he's a tired fullback. And when you're a tired fullback, sometimes what you do, because your legs have just been worked and your thighs are hurting, you're getting down and you just, rather than track back and think, I'm going to work my legs one more time, you just go and do that. You do that. And when that knee goes there, you then try and pull it away a little bit, which I think he did. But as soon as a winger or a wide player or any forward just pops that ball past you and sees that knee, you're done. And we've all done it. I've done it. I did it, I think, against Steven Gerrard once at Old Trafford, where you dive in rather than just doing your work defensively. And I think he was half complaining that it wasn't a penalty, but on his face it told you everything. And my heart sank for him, because it was a brilliant performance from him today. He was the best fullback on the pitch by a mile in terms of his defensive work, and then he's had to contend with that at the end. And it's the life of a fullback. But credit to Munoz. I want to talk about him, because actually I thought Ingamo struggled on that side a little bit, on the right-hand side. It's first game of the season. He's still young, and there's a long way to go. So, that can happen. But he found it tough against Lewis Hall. But I thought when Munoz came on, he was really bright and sharp. and actually sort of got crosses in, sometimes squeezed past Lewis Hall a little bit at times. But yeah, I thought he was bright, and he'll feel really good about his first introduction sort of into the Premier League there. And we're just seeing the penalty back now, aren't we? Just see that leg go out, but it's good work from the Liverpool play. That touch is good. Then the second one just passed him there, and he just puts that leg out. Yeah. So there we go. But yeah, well done to Munoz. He a good introduction for him. He gets Liverpool that penalty.
And Liverpool in general?
Liverpool in general, look, you can't say that Liverpool didn't deserve a point out of the game, because generally they had quite a few chances, but Newcastle could have been out of sight with the counter-attacks that they had. Overall, I think Liverpool fans, I think there were quite a few of them are gone at 2-1. You look at that end, you remember that it was quite sparse, wasn't it? And I was surprised.
Never a pen, Sturridge!
That's a Newcastle fan saying never a pen. It was, mate, unfortunately. I think they'll be happy with the points. A good finish for them, and they're celebrating. But I think deep down, when you're measuring yourself for the standards that Liverpool have in the last 5-10 years of winning titles, I think that they'll travel home tonight, back to Liverpool, back to Merseyside, and they'll be thinking, we've got a lot of work to do. And the back four, well, let's go through it. The two fullbacks, look, if you're going to play, and I love the idea of having Kirkes and Frimpong and them flying forward, but you better have two amazing centre-backs, and you better have two very good holding midfield players that are going to stop counter-attacks and that are going to be able to get across and defend. So that can happen, that can work, but you need to compensate for the... But if you've got a young right centre-back, which they have, and then they've got what I call midfield players that are... Gravenberch and Szoboszlai, they're going to play there. I know McAllister will come into it. But they're not... I wouldn't say that they're holding midfield players. In fact, at times they empty midfield by running forward and sort of quite unstructured and not disciplined. So I think it's a real problem to try and get the balance right for Liverpool of the two centre-backs, the two really attacking sort of wingers stroke full-backs, and then you've got this midfield which is quite mobile. So I don't think the back part of the pitch is right. It's not. It's going to concede goals, and it has conceded goals. So I wouldn't trust that much. Although I think the boy Xhaka looked like he's got something, by the way. And it was tough for him at times. I thought Visser and Asula did well, but I thought his passing and his confidence, he's not one. He's one of those where sometimes you see a sort of young centre-back that are quite wiry and gangly, and they haven't got the sort of what will be the control sometimes, and they sort of pass it, and they haven't got the sturdiness in the pass. But I thought he was really good in that. So he looks like he's got something. I'm only seeing him, to be fair, here for the first time in the Liverpool shirt today, but you get a good feeling early on of things that you like, and I liked him. The big thing for Liverpool is they've got this £250 million front two, Isak and Wirtz. And bloody hell, we've been kind to them. We have been kind to those two. They're going to have to start playing sooner, else, to be fair, they're going to get quite a lot of criticism. And I think they're going to have to start delivering. I mean, for a start, they're too nice. And if you're going to be nice, you better be incredible at football. And, literally, I don't see the tenacity in Wirtz in particular. I mean, Isak a bit more, but in Wirtz, I just see a nice player moving around the pitch, not really ever looking like he's busting a gut to do anything. Now, that can happen because sometimes you see like a Mesut Ozil, or you see players that are more graceful, that sort of just flow with the game a little bit. And Havertz is a bit like that, isn't it, at Arsenal, where just sometimes players have that flow about them. But I want to put a rocket up him. I want to put a rocket up him because there's ability there, there's talent there, the understanding of his position. Sometimes I think he moves around too much. Sometimes I don't think he's close enough to his striker. Sometimes I don't think he understands where the game's going to be won and lost. And I can take it back to sort of when I played football and think about sometimes where, do you know when number 10s sometimes drifted too deep or sometimes drifted too wide? They would get a right rollicking off our manager. The game's not going to be won out there. The game's not going to be won back there. The game's going to be won in the final third, in and around the box, combining with your striker, getting crosses, getting little passes, getting little side passes down the side of the centre-backs, being close enough to your forward so that you can combine with him. And I don't see him combining with Isak. So for me, and I've said this for 12 months now with Wirtz, and I'm not wrong on him, he generally drifts too much. Now, I know that sometimes we can talk about, give him the freedom to move where he wants. No, I'm sorry. That's not actually what I think a number 10 and a number 9, how a number 10 and number 9 should work. And in the modern game, usually, there's a real discipline about positional attacking positions. And I just feel like Wirtz has got to really think about maybe being involved in the build-up less. He's got to think about being a second striker rather than a sort of third midfield player. He's got to think about his output and what he needs to do, and that is feed Isak with little passes down the side of centre-backs. And he might only get the ball 2 or 3 times in that position in tight games where teams are light deep. But I'll tell you what, they've got to improve. And I'm laying it on them right here, right now, because I've watched them for 12 months, and I think actually I've got faith in them. I think Isak's an exceptional player, and we've seen it. I never saw anybody give Gabriel and Saliba or Van Dijk and Konate as tough a time as Isak did when he played at Newcastle in a black and white shirt. So I've seen him be devastating. Now, Liverpool fans and Liverpool's teammates and Liverpool's coaching staff, they need to see that, because that's 125 million quid. And then Wirtz, he needs to sort himself out. Enough's enough now. We've talked about him enough, and he's young and he's coming into a different country, and I'm all for willing him. Actually, I can see a real player there, but we can't keep watching this stuff. And he's been subbed after an hour, and they need a goal. But they're 2-1 down. So, no, that's not right. So, yeah, biggest disappointment for me today is those two. I think Gakpo actually did all right. There's talk of him leaving, but I actually think Gakpo, if you had a suite of 3 or 4 wide players, I don't have a problem with Gakpo at the top level, by the way, where Liverpool want to be, or an Arsenal. I think he'd be in most top teams' sort of what would be 4 wide players. You might not want him as your 1 and 2, but you'd be certainly happy if he was your sort of second left winger. And then Engelmo's a young boy on the right, and he didn't quite happen for him today, but Munoz came on and did what he did. So, got some positives for Liverpool, but the big question is that front two. I know Ekitike is not in the mix at the moment, but they have to deliver. Let's be clear, you can't not deliver for that money when you're sort of getting paid that level of money, and you're being you've had that fee on you. You've got that quality and that talent. You've got to deliver. You've got to deliver numbers. 35 goals between them. That's it. Probably 15 assists between them. That's it. Anything else and anything below that isn't right. So let's start to sort of what will be honing in on them, because they have had a bit of a free ride. Arne Slot, obviously Isak was injured last season, but Arne Slot loses his job. And Wirtz has played like that. So let's be clear. This has got to start some real focus now, I think, in terms of how he's playing. And I think that wasn't a good start for him today. But look, let's see how he goes in the next few weeks.
Well, let's go backwards through the weekend. I don't know how much you saw of the earlier games today. Clearly,
I watched quite a bit of City.
Well, yeah, and a big shock for Villa. So, what did you make of City?
Well, I saw the goals in the first half. I was sat in the truck we had City and the Villa. Oh, that was a massive. I mean, the goals that Villa conceded were horrific. But you looked at the Villa team as it was announced, and you looked at the Villa bench, and you were like, they've had the heart ripped out of it. You talk about who's left: Digne, Tielemans, Rodgers, Konza. Talk about the heart being ripped out of Newcastle's midfield. I mean, the experience that they've lost there. And there's this peculiar thing going on, isn't there, at the moment with PSR and sort of the foot. No one knows where the money is. It's all over the shop, isn't it? And so Villa will be sat there. Villa's fans will be sat there. They've got an outstanding manager. And the big thing that I was thinking during that match at 4-0 was they've got to keep Unai Emery. Is Unai Emery going to think, is he going to think, hang on a minute, I can't be associated with this? Hopefully not, because I really want Villa to do well, and I want Unai Emery to stay there, because I love the idea of different teams breaking into the Champions League places. And watching Villa in the last couple of seasons has been a joy. I love Unai Emery and the way he works, the way his teams play. And it's great to see them from where they were, 10 years ago when they were in the Championship. So yeah, it's a brilliant journey that they've been on, and sort of getting into this position. But this could go like that quite quickly. But they've got to hold on to the manager. They've somehow got to get some players in this week. There's talk of the boy signed from Germany, Goretzka, was it? I think, has he signed? Yes. Yeah. So look, if they can get 3 or 4 in this week, and he does have a habit, Unai Emery, of being able to get players in.
Well, you'd want to play for him, wouldn't you?
Oh yeah, of course you would. I mean, I think probably he's the best manager in the league from a point of view of overall record and his experience. So absolutely you'd want to play for him. And Villa are in a great position. They're going to have a lot of good games this season. So look, that was a shock seeing that. Well done to Brighton, but yeah, that was a big shock, and my immediate nervousness for Aston Villa is keeping their manager. And City, look, City deserved to win the game because you look at Haaland's miss and Gay's miss. Did you see Gay's miss just
Yes,
after
I
that
did.
with the header?
Yes.
And I actually thought City in the first 5-10 minutes were really bright. The shock for me was actually that when I saw the City team go up, I didn't think it would play. I didn't think the players would play in those positions. I think Rico Lewis went to right back. I think that Nico O'Reilly went to left back. I think Gay went into midfield. Foden went to right wing. So it was a bit, what's that? So I think not quite right. And look, from a City perspective, it was really important that they won, and from Maresca, particularly in your first weekend, and a lot of pressure on these new managers that are coming into these big clubs with expectation and taking over from Pep Guardiola. But City deserved to win in the game, but they'll, it wasn't plain sailing for them, and there were some things to concern yourselves about. Look, last week when we were sort of previewing the season, all I kept thinking about was that this is going to be the most unpredictable season. It's going to be intriguing because you've got new managers, you've got lots of new players, you've got so much change at the top, and Arsenal should win this league by a street. And I don't sit here on Sunday evening thinking anything differently. We've seen Tottenham get beat yesterday. We've seen Manchester United get beat. We've seen Liverpool nearly get beat here today. We've seen City scrambling for a win at home. So everything we thought we would see, we're seeing. Ipswich beat Sunderland. Villa get beat 4-0. So everything that we thought we would see, the unpredictable nature of teams at the top, probably not being good enough to go and basically do what they did last season and the season before and get beat by teams that are well organised like Brentford and Ipswich and others. And Hull. So yeah, it's played out pretty much as I thought it would do. And for City, it was a good win, but still questions in terms, because look, City are same as Liverpool. These two clubs were getting nearly 100 points. How long ago? 6-7 years ago? 5-6, and that's still fresh in the memory. Treble winners, 4 times Premier League winners. Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool, Arne Slot's champions. That's just happened. And so we're measuring these two clubs by the standards that they've set, and they're nowhere near that standard. This Liverpool team are nowhere near the levels of a Premier League title winning team. I don't believe. They're going to need a lot of work. And City, I think that. Yeah, they're well below where they need to. I think losing Rodri is a massive blow. Yeah. Do you want to go through yesterday?
Well, yeah. I suppose the two headline ones were Spurs and Manchester United, which perhaps is the wrong way of saying it. Perhaps the headlines are Brentford and Hull.
Yeah.
How good were Hull?
Hull did everything that you would would have wanted them to have done if you were a Hull City fan or if you were a football fan. Compete, be aggressive, be organised, hard to break down, defend deep and make sure that you don't give better forwards and better players than you space. Be good on set pieces, attack everything, win first balls, win second balls, scrap for your life. And for Manchester United, they fell short in those areas in that first 25-30 minutes of the game. And Manchester United yesterday had over 75% possession, and they have struggled at times more against sort of what would be teams that play deeper. But it's a massive wake-up call. And for Hull, brilliant, absolutely brilliant. To come up from the Championship, we said it last season with Leeds and Sunderland, sort of what would be leading the way of being aggressive and physical. And we saw Coventry on Friday night, and it was a tough first game. That's the best team in the league they're playing against. But they've signed physically strong players. Frank's gone down the physical route, because this league now, it's got good technical players, it's got good quality, but you cannot lose out physically to anybody. And Hull, more than matched. In fact, to be fair, they were better than Manchester United physically in the game. And that'll be the big disappointment for Michael Carrick. He comes from a solid background of course, you've got to try and use your quality, you've got to try and combine and pass and play. But you've got to win the battle, you've got to win the fight, you've got to make sure you win your individual duels, you've got to make sure that you play better than the guy that you're playing against. And that just didn't happen yesterday for United. There were too many of them well below par, and he'll want that to be a blip. I think there'll be a calmness about him. I think that he's got a home game next weekend against Ipswich, obviously, who had a good win this weekend, so it can't stretch into next weekend. That's got to be dealt with by then. And they've got to be back at it. But what it did highlight was that Manchester United defensively, that defence isn't good enough. No, it isn't. No, but to be fair, they know it probably. They rebuilt the forward line last year because that was a problem the year before. The midfield is a real issue with Ugarte obviously injured and Casemiro leaving. So they've needed to rebuild the midfield in this transfer window, and they're doing that. And it looks like, obviously, they've got 2 over the line already, and it looks like they're going to get a Belieber as well. So that's 3 bodies in there. They've obviously got to go and deliver. But they do need, and if they've got the money on it, I don't know, but they do need a centre-back. They do need full-backs. They just do. I mean, there's no other way of saying it, really. And, yeah, I think that was highlighted. You don't want to be conceding goals on set pieces and getting outdone on duels and sort of what would be the fight in the game. That'll be the disappointing thing for Michael Carrick.
Yeah, and Spurs would say the same sort of things. That is to say that the team they're going to end up with isn't the same team as the one that was well beaten at Brentford yesterday.
No.
Once they've finished in the market and once key players are back, Porro, of course, a big example, back from the World Cup and so on, having won it. But I was at that game, Gary, and I must say I was blown away by Brentford. I thought they were terrific.
Yeah, and I think if you've got an organised unit, you're physically very good, and you know what you're doing, you can shock some of these big teams. Because some of these big teams are all over the place at the moment in terms of just adapting with new players coming in and coming back from the World Cup. So you can really shock them. And Brentford are a well-organised, well-drilled unit who know what they're doing. They've got a passion, a spirit, they've got quality, they know exactly what each other are going to do out on the pitch. They know the limitations, they know what they can and can't do. And they, to be fair, I mean, I was watching it in my hotel room and I think they just dismantled Spurs. A little bit like Brighton have done with Villa today. They just dismantled them, and to be fair, were far better. But a massive shock.
Yeah,
for De Zerbi. I think. I know we can talk about, for Hull, for Manchester United, and for Tottenham, and for Villa, and for Liverpool. We can say, oh, it's early and there's a long way to go, and it's only one game. But that's not how an elite club operates. A defeat of that nature for all these clubs should send shockwaves through the whole of the entirety of the dressing room. And it should be taken really seriously, and I'm sure it is, and I'm sure they're downplaying it publicly. But privately, they'll be like, we're going to nip this in the bud now. You've got to stop these little sort of what would be bugs, diseases, whatever you want to call them, emerging and growing and sort of mutating through your dressing room. Because once you get into a second defeat or a third, and all of a sudden you're in the midst of a lot of trouble. So, yeah, for Tottenham, for Villa, for Manchester United, for Liverpool, they've got to obviously get their performance. For City as well. I mean, they've won the game today, but they'll know that they weren't at the level. And Arsenal are going to be feeling really confident right now. It's the most sure I've ever been. And look, it could be this. I've got egg on my face at the end of the season. I'm doing predictions on Monday Night Football tomorrow. It's the most sure I've ever been after game 1 that we're going to see a team Premier League champions.
That is interesting. Yeah. Without yet having seen Chelsea, so we'll finish obviously on Kevin Keegan, but just tee up Monday Night Football.
Interesting, yeah. Look, really, I think Chelsea will finish second. I'm going to predict tomorrow night, unless I see them play really badly at Fulham. So I do reserve the right to change my opinion. I do think Chelsea will finish second because of the squad and because of the fact they haven't got European competition and they haven't got the confusion. They've got a good manager. So I do think Chelsea have got a great chance to push Arsenal this year and finish second and be the team. And let's see tomorrow night. They play Fulham in a local derby. It's going to be a tough game. Game 1 of the season. But the new Chelsea, let's have a look at them and let's see what they are. But I think that they'll have watched this weekend's football, those Chelsea players, and thought, there are enough signs, there are enough sort of what would be signals that we can't just think we're going to go there tomorrow night and play our football. We're going to have to compete. We have to be good at set pieces. We're going to have to make sure we get stuck in. We're going to have to make sure that we run hard, like it matters every single time. Because if you don't in this league, it will catch you out.
Okay, that's the weekend gone. With apologies to those who didn't get the mention they perhaps feel they deserve. Well done, Leeds. Well done, as you did mention, Ipswich. Fantastic.
Everton.
2 of the promoted teams won, and Everton beat Crystal Palace as well. But surely the enduring memory of the whole weekend will be, extraordinary, spine-tingling, goosebumps moments in the build-up to kick-off here, all around Kevin Keegan. So have, if you will, your last word on him.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite emotional and felt quite choked. I mean, obviously, I played under Kevin with England for 2 years, and obviously we had those title races against the incredible Newcastle team that he built up here. It was the visual aspect that sort of got me first, and then obviously the noise, the singing. I mean, look, this is a special ground anyway, and the fans here know how to make a noise, and they know how to pay tribute to somebody, and he's a special character. I mean, my sort of phases of Kevin Keegan are that as a kid, Kevin Keegan's almost like the England icon, the England legend that I'm growing up with, and then Brian Robson comes in. But he's the first England player that I remember. Then it was Brian Robson, then it was Gary Lineker, and then it was Gazza. So that sort of period of my life, I thought there were England players, and I thought of Kevin Keegan as being someone who was just the England legend, almost like that. He was a legend. And then obviously the second phase of my sort of experience of Kevin Keegan was when he became a manager up here, and his team were breathtaking. Obviously they beat us 5-1 here. We had obviously the title race where the famous sort of what would be interview and the passion and the emotion, you feel that in him, and you could see that in him. And then I got to be able to play under him with England, and I said the other day I felt really disappointed about how I played under Kevin Keegan for a year and a half, maybe nearly 2 years. It was my worst period, I think, at United for just after the treble for a year or so. I didn't play very well, lost my confidence, and that carried then into my England team. But Kevin always picked me, and I felt like I let him down. I didn't feel like I played as well as I should have done, and usually I was pretty consistent, and I wasn't at the level. But I said before, every single day in training, I remember he was obviously there, Arthur Cox, Peter Beardsley, Glenn Roeder, and their enthusiasm, but particularly Kevin's enthusiasm every single morning when you come out onto the training pitch. And it's sometimes the sort of what would be the simple things, that to be surrounded by someone who's leading you, that's enthusiastic, that's eager, that's keen for people to do well, that's positive in everything that they say. Get forward, go forward. You don't find many people like that in life. And sometimes, even me, sometimes don't you disappear down a negativity hole where you look at everything as the glass half empty rather than the glass half full. And Kevin was just so enthusiastic, inspirational, infectious. His love for the game was unbelievable. And when you think about this city and Newcastle, it's almost the perfect match. The passion that they have for football up here, the love they have for the game, the fact that they want to love their own. And he was... he was that. He just epitomised this club, but also the Liverpool fans obviously paid a great tribute to him as well, because he was special for them. And I don't remember that. I only remember the Newcastle part. But yeah, for me, a really special day, a deserving tribute for someone who was a shining light on and off the pitch, and someone who definitely lived for football and was passionate about it. And amazing day, really. It was quite overwhelming.
Wonderful. Won't try to add to that. Thank you, Gary.
Thank you. Thanks, Peter.